The FATA missile leaves its mobile launcher at 7:43 and the USS Thomas Hudner's Spy-1 radar picks it up 4 seconds later. Not because 4 seconds is fast. It is, but because what the radar is showing the operators in the Combat Information Center is something none of them have ever seen on a live display outside of a training simulation. The contact is accelerating through Mach 5 and still climbing. It is not following a standard ballistic arc. It is maneuvering, not actively changing its trajectory in real time, making micro-corrections that no interceptor in the Thomas Hudner's magazine was designed to defeat. The tactical action officer, Lieutenant Commander James Okafor, looks at the track for exactly 1 second before he understands what he is looking at. Iran just fired a FATA. He has approximately 4 minutes and 30 seconds to figure out how to stop something that was specifically engineered to be unstoppable. The FATA is Iran's first genuine hypersonic missile. It travels at Mach 13 in its terminal phase, 13 times the speed of sound, approximately 400 m/s. At that speed, the physics of interception become brutally unforgiving. An SM-6 interceptor needs to place itself in the exact position where a target will be at the exact moment of detonation. Against a subsonic or even supersonic missile, this is a solved problem. The Aegis fire control computer is extraordinarily good at predicting where a missile flying a predictable path will be in 30 seconds. But the FATA is not flying a predictable path. It uses a maneuvering re-entry vehicle, a warhead that can change direction during its terminal descent, making small but significant course corrections that invalidate any intercept solution the moment it is calculated. By the time an SM-6 reaches the point in space where the FATA was supposed to be, the FATA is somewhere else. It is like trying to catch a bullet that can dodge. At 7:44, Lieutenant Commander Okafor calls weapons free, and the Aegis system begins building an intercept solution. 2 SM-6 missiles launch from the forward vertical launch cells at 744 and 22 seconds. The fire control computer has calculated the FATA's projected terminal point based on its current trajectory and assigned the SM-6S accordingly. At 7:45 and 41 seconds, the first SM-6 reaches its intercept point. The FATA isn't there. It has executed a course correction of 1.8 degrees at a change invisible to the naked eye, barely significant in any normal context. But at Mach 13, a 1.8 degree correction translates to 340 m of lateral displacement in the 3 seconds between the fire control solution and the intercept attempt. The SM-6 detonates in empty air. The second SM-6 launches on an updated solution 4 seconds later, and the same thing happens. The F corrects again 2.1 degrees this time, and the interceptor finds nothing. 2 SM-6 missiles expended. Zero effect on the incoming contact. Now at 746, the Phalanx CIWS activates automatically as the FA enters its inner defense envelope. The Phalanx, the Thomas Hudner's last conventional line of defense, a 20mm Gatling gun capable of firing 4,500 rounds per minute that has successfully destroyed subsonic and low supersonic missiles in dozens of engagements. Against the FATA, it is mathematically useless. The Phalanx fire control radar tracks the incoming contact and the gun traverses to engage. But the engagement geometry at Mach 13 gives the system approximately 0.8 seconds of firing opportunity at 4,500 rounds per minute. That translates to 60 rounds in the air before the missile is past the engagement window. The probability of those 60 rounds hitting a maneuvering target at hypersonic speed is calculated by the system's own fire control computer at 3.2%. The Phalanx fires anyway because it has no choice. The rounds miss. The FATA continues inbound. Time to impact. 41 seconds. Lieutenant Commander Okafor is a third-generation Navy officer whose grandfather served on destroyers in the Gulf War and whose father commanded a frigate in the Pacific. He has been thinking about hypersonic missile defense since his postgraduate thesis at the Naval War College 3 years ago, where he wrote a 47-page paper on exactly this scenario. Maneuvering hypersonic reentry vehicle defeating conventional layered defense and the theoretical solution he proposed in that paper is the only option left in the 41 seconds he has remaining. He keys the intercom to the ship's gun control officer. All ahead flank gun control. Need proximity air bursts in a corridor bearing 031. Altitude 800 feet, continuous fire, maximum rate. Do it now. The order makes no conventional sense. The Thomas Hudner's Mark 455 naval gun is a surface engagement weapon. It is designed to hit ships and shore targets, not to shoot down missiles. But Okafor is not trying to shoot down the FATA. He's trying to do something that has never been attempted operationally in the history of naval warfare. He is trying to build a wall. A proximity-fused 5N round does not need to hit its target directly. It detonates when its fuse detects a solid object within lethal fragmentation range, approximately 15 m, and when it detonates, it sends thousands of high-velocity steel fragments expanding outward in every direction at speeds exceeding 1,500 m/s. But a single proximity detonation creates a fragmentation sphere, approximately 30-minute diameter that exists for a fraction of a second before the fragments disperse. One detonation is not enough to stop a hypersonic missile, but the Mk-45 can fire 20 rounds per minute in sustained fire mode. And if those rounds are timed and fused correctly, each one detonating at the precise altitude and bearing where the FATA must pass, they do not create a single fragmentation sphere. They create a corridor, a column of overlapping fragmentation events through which the FATA has to fly. At Mach 13, the Thomas Hudner's gun control team has been training on the Mark 45 for a combined total of 47 years. A chief gunner's mate, petty officer, first class Marcus Webb, sets the fusing parameters in 11 seconds, and the gun begins firing at 746 and 31 seconds. 20 rounds per minute. Proximity fused. Bearing 031. Altitude 800 feet, 10 seconds off, continuous fire. 200 rounds in the air, timed and fused, filling a corridor 40 m wide and 200 m long directly in the path of a missile traveling at 4,400 meters per second. The FA enters the corridor at 746 and 44 seconds. Now at Mach 13, it traverses 200 m in approximately 0.045 seconds. In that 0.045 seconds, it passes through 17 overlapping fragmentation events. The first 6 detonations produce fragments that miss the airframe entirely. The face small and the fragmentation spheres are not perfectly centered. The 7th detonation places a cluster of 8 fragments within the lethal radius of the missile's left guidance fin assembly. So 4 fragments penetrate the fin housing at velocities exceeding 800 m/s. The fin itself is not destroyed. It is damaged. 2 of its 4 control surfaces are shredded, and an actuator controlling the 3rd is severed. The FA's guidance system immediately detects the asymmetric control response and attempts to compensate, commanding the remaining control surfaces to correct. But the remaining surfaces cannot generate enough force to overcome the aerodynamic imbalance created by the destroyed assembly at Mach 13. The missile begins to yaw slowly at first, then faster. They are becoming a spin as the aerodynamic forces overwhelm the guidance system's ability to maintain stable flight. At 746 and 52 seconds, the FATA impacts the surface of the Arabian Gulf at a 67-degree angle, 194 meters off the Thomas Hudner's port bow. The warhead detonates on water impact. The explosion throws a column of water 60 m into the air, and the pressure wave rocks the Thomas Hudner hard enough to throw 2 crew members off their feet in the passageway outside the Combat Information Center. Every window on the port bridge wing shatters from the overpressure. A fire breaks out in a storage compartment on the port side from a fragment that travels 194 m through the air after the warhead detonation and penetrates the hull above the waterline. The fire is extinguished in 4 minutes and 17 seconds. No crew members are killed. 3 are treated for lacerations from shattered glass. The Thomas Hudner is operational in the Combat Information Center. Lieutenant Commander Okafor does not celebrate. He picks up the circuit to the captain and makes his report in 11 words. Threat defeated. Fire on port side under control. 3 casualties non-critical day. Then he turns to his electronic warfare officer and asks the only question that matters now. Where did it come from? The FAT's launch signature had been captured by the Thomas Hudner's passive sensors the moment the missile left its launcher. The mobile launcher had been positioned on a coastal promontory on the Iranian mainland overlooking the Persian Gulf. An elevated firing position chosen to maximize the FATA's line of sight tow targets in the Gulf below. The mobile launchers move after firing. That is their primary defensive advantage. Shoot and relocate before the enemy can respond. The IRGC crew had trained for exactly this and began moving the moment the missile launched. They had a planned relocation route in a secondary position 6 kilometers away. They had 47 seconds of head start before the Thomas Hudner began building its response solution. 47 seconds is not enough. The Thomas Hudner's fire control system had been tracking the launch point continuously since 743. By 747, while the launcher was still in transit on a coastal road moving toward its secondary position, the targeting solution was complete. 2 BGM-109 Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from the Thomas Hudner's vertical launch cells at 7:49. Flight time to target 11 minutes and 30 seconds. The mobile launcher had been designed to reach its secondary position in 8 minutes. It reached the halfway point of its relocation route at 754 when the first Tomahawk arrived. The second impacted 14 seconds later. The IRGC crew of 7 had fired Iran's most advanced missile, an American destroyer, and watched it fall into the sea 194 m short of its target. They had 47 seconds to escape what was coming. They needed 8 minutes. The math was not in their favor. At 8:01, the Thomas Hudner's captain transmitted his engagement report to 5th Fleet Headquarters in Bahrain. 1 FATA hypersonic missile fired at this vessel. Threat defeated by Mark 45 proximity fire corridor. Minor damage. 3 non-critical casualties. Launch position prosecuted. 2 Tomahawks on target. Launcher destroyed. This vessel is fully operational and ready to continue the mission. Iran launched their most feared missile at USS Thomas Hudner. May the missile that was supposed to be unstoppable. The weapon specifically designed to defeat every layer of American naval defense. The one Iran had been saving for the moment. It needed something that nothing in the U.S. Navy's arsenal could stop. It fell into the Arabian Gulf 194 m short of its target, because a lieutenant commander who wrote a paper about this exact scenario 3 years ago at the Naval War College remembered what he wrote and had 11 seconds to act on it. And the IRGC crew that fired it had 47 seconds to escape what came next. America's response was already in the air before the water column had finished falling.